Hey, welcome back. My name's Justin. Today we're going to cover all the electronic drums that either came out or were announced in 2023. Not just from the really big companies like Roland or Yamaha, but also the small and medium tier companies that you may have missed. Today's video is brought to you by edrumcenter.com. If you're shopping for electronic drums, use the discount link to them in the description of this video. Alright, so kicking things off, very early in the year, F-Note stole a lot of attention because they released 15 drum sets all at once. Or at least they announced them, and then like half a year later, they finally came out. So they came out with the 500 Standard, the 501 Traditional, the 502 Modern, the 503 Power, the 504 Technical, the 505 Heavy, the 506 Progressive, the 507 Complete, the 700 Standard, the 701 Traditional, the 702 Modern, the 703 Power, the 704 Technical, the 705 Heavy, the 706 Progressive, and the 707 Complete. Obviously, that last one is the one they were showing off at NAMM. Got a chance to play it, ask some questions about it. And yes, it really is fun to play. It looks awesome in person, it feels really good, and they got better sounds built in. But the one thing that caught a lot of us by surprise, aside from the fact that it's absolutely massive, this is the biggest drum set you can buy at a standard music store. The really surprising thing about it, though, is the fact that they give you a stage box. So tons of inputs and outputs on the ground, not, hanging from the air, on the ground where it should be, and it's kind of separated from the module itself. It's one of those ideas that when you see it, you start wondering why other companies haven't tried this before. Now, of course, it's not perfect. It doesn't have all the functionality of like a Roland VD706, but this drum set is awesome. So at least to me, the F-Note Pro 707 Complete is my favorite drum set that came out this year, bar none. So next up, we've got Roland. This was a suspiciously light release year for them. So they only came out with two drum sets, the Roland TD02K and the Roland TD02KV. Those two kits are replacing the Roland TD1 line that came out back in 2014. So it's long past since time that they should have replaced this anyway. I'm glad these came out. There's only two things really being updated about them though. You get a better drum module that has nicer sounds, but no extra functionality really. And then you get a better drum rack. So next up is NuX with the launch of the DM8. This drum set is decently large for the price. It costs about $1,550, and you get a 12-inch snare, 10-inch toms, 10-inch kick drum. The cymbals are all 12 inches except for the ride, which is 14 inches across, and it's 3-zone. And the whole drum set doesn't feel overly cheap like some Chinese electronic drum sets. It feels pretty decent. The thing though, the reason why I wouldn't give it like an A+ or anything is that the module sounds are pretty bad, and the hi-hat doesn't have a lot of stages of open and closed. So it looks great and it's fun to play in person, but it's not quite up there with like the elite tier of electronic drums. The next product that came out was the Evans Hybrid Sensory Percussion Sound System. This is a very high-end trigger system that works basically as a pickup. So you put a little metallic dot on your drum head, and then the drum trigger will sense how it vibrates as you hit it. And this allows the trigger to map out tons of zones. And this is all just me, talking about what Generation 1 can do. Apparently this one is even better. It comes with an audio interface this time, thank goodness, and the software has been revamped. It's a really, really interesting system. It's hard to explain. You got to go watch a demo. The problem is, I feel like this will still be a niche product because of the high price tag and the fact that you have to set everything up and you need to have a laptop. So I feel like those are reasons why this won't be for everybody. The next drum set that came out this year was the Alesis Nitro Max. This is apparently replacing the baseline Alesis Nitro. After I made my review video, I was contacted by Alesis and they told me that yes, this actually is the long-term replacement of that kit. This drum set gives you a 10-inch snare instead of an 8-inch one, and the module got updated as well. It is nice that it now has Bluetooth and the larger snare drum, but the drum rack I feel like needs a little bit of help, and the trigger settings need to be expanded a little bit, especially for the snare, so I can more evenly fine-tune the difference between rim and head. Overall, I think this drum set's okay, but I'm not trying to overhype it up like I've seen some places sort of talk about it online. I just think it's an okay drum set at this price. The next company is Donner. They released a bunch of new drum sets this year. I believe the Donner DED 200 Max is brand new. I got a chance to play this DED 500 Pro. There's a non-pro version of it that just has a hi-hat on the drum rack instead of a hi-hat on the stand, and there may be one or two others here that are brand new as well. So I got a chance to play a good chunk of their lineup, and I gotta say, I'm not trying to be a hater, I just don't quite think Donner is there yet. I hope they will be, because I always like it when new competitors show up with better drum sets at lower prices, but they have a little bit more work to do before I can start recommending this brand. So now let's cover a design trend that kind of came out of nowhere this year. 3 companies all started selling drums with 3 cones in the center to reduce hot spotting. Drumtech did it with the release of their Pro 3 and Diablo 3 kits. The Pro 3 snare has an additional 3 mini cones around the edge, and the toms get rid of those, they space them out, and then they use a more simplified version of this for their cheaper Diablo kit. The second company is Jobeki, who came out with a string of interesting triggers this year, including this multi-point trigger that kind of reminds me of F-Note's 14-inch internals. But along with that, they also released a 3-cone snare drum trigger. And then we got the third company to go with a design like this, which is AE Hybrid Drums. So 3 companies in, this kind of seems like a full-blown design trend at this point. Now keep in mind, these are all very small companies that hand make their drums. These aren't the Rolands or Yamahas of the world. But whenever 3 companies all of a sudden start using a brand new design, you kind of want to take notice. And while we're talking about AE Hybrid, the brand also released a line of electronic cymbals this year, which look pretty nice from the photos. Every company that makes metal electronic cymbals uses a slightly different strategy, so it's always cool to see what the next one is up to. But what surprised me was that you can get their hi-hats working with F-Note modules, because they apparently sell this little adapter cable that makes them compatible. Alright, so next up we got the Lumen Handpan. This is a really interesting device. It's got positional sensing zones, it's got a battery built in, it's got a built-in speaker, so you don't even need to plug it into a wall if you don't want, and you can change the sounds. Plus you can pitch it to whatever scale you want to play. It's very versatile. I got a chance to meet the guy behind the product, and apparently he started working on this back in 2013. Then the company was founded in 2014, then they had their Indiegogo campaign in 2016, and now in 2023 they finally have the global launch of the real product. Now you might think that this is the only electronic handpan on the entire market, like I thought, but apparently no, there is competition, or was. So Lumen claims to be the first ever electronic handpan company, and then you've got Oval in their Kickstarter, they claim to be the first ever electronic handpan. Then there's Neotone, which is apparently a really high-end competitor as well that I've never seen in person. And then you got the Wavepan. Some of these brands may not be around, I can't remember off the top of my head, but those are other competitors that we have seen in the past. Alright, so next up we got the introduction of the Geva G3 Club 5 SE. Unfortunately, I haven't played a single Geva G3 series. I played Geva G5 series and Geva G9 series. I've done a bunch of videos on those drum sets, so go check them out on the channel if you want to learn more information about those. But apparently the G3 launched in like late 2022 and then in 2023, depending on the exact version we're talking about. Geva has an interesting strategy for raising and lowering the price of their drums. There's the obvious thing where they give you pad-based drums on a cheaper set and then, more acoustic-looking drums on a more expensive set. But the real way they really change the price of their drums is the module. So if you have a higher-end module body, it allows you to do like more editing or have a touchscreen on it or better connectivity. But you're getting the same sounds if you buy their very cheapest drum set. This has the same sounds of their G9 series. Next up, we got the Groove X Arc Trigger Bar. This sells for $199, and it's basically a competitor versus the Roland BT1 bar trigger. It's designed by Russ Miller. Apparently it's made by Groove X, which also makes a lot of acoustic secondary rims, so this is now an electronic offering in their whole lineup. Alright, so next up we got the DWE launch. It's hard to talk about this drum set because it's fantastic and not my cup of tea at the exact same time. It's got metal cymbals, it's got wireless drums, you get sounds from your laptop instead of a module. It's got a lot of things going on that make it just like a nerdy drum set that's really fun to play, really interesting, has so many possibilities. But because of the price tag and the fact that it's got metal cymbals that make it loud, and the fact that it's got wireless tech, which some people just don't want to deal with along with the batteries, this will definitely be for some people that made them really excited. And it is obviously not for other people like myself that would rather have rubber cymbals and that sort of thing. It is a very interesting drum set that you just got to go watch my review or go watch somebody else's review. It's got a lot of pros and cons to it, but I'm so glad it exists. Alright, so next up we got a surprise announcement of the Medley MZ928. I've been calling this company Medley for years at this point, but apparently it was supposed to be Medley. Anyway, this Medley drum set is really large. It's got a 10x7 tom, 10x7 tom 2, 12x12 floor tom, there are 2 zones. The snare is 12x5, 2-zone with positional sensing. You got 14-inch crashes, 16-inch ride, 12-inch 2-piece hi-hat with choke. You got a kick drum that's 20x16. Tons of expandability, a lot of sounds built in. It's got a lot going on. If Medley doesn't ring a bell in your head, just know that they're the company that make Alesis drum sets. The thing that really surprised me was that the guy demoing this and showing it off on their YouTube channel was Steve Fisher, who is previously from Yamaha and Roland. So next up, we've got Unlocked Drums. I'm going to mark down 2023 as their global launch, because while they did exist on paper before this, and maybe there was distribution somewhere in China, wasn't AliExpress. I don't know where they were being sold. In 2023, they got distribution with Choral Music, who started selling them. So Choral Music is a store based in Israel. They sell musical instruments, and they started distributing this worldwide. And that's why you started seeing all kinds of reviewers, myself included, making videos about unlocked drums, because they started sending out review units to different YouTube channels this year. In addition to that, apparently they do request changes from unlocked drums themselves. So Choral Music, sort of is shaping the way unlocked drums are moving forward. And so there's a new grayed out cymbal line that they have. I've only reviewed the old version, but there's a new version of their cymbals. They've got drum triggers and complete drum sets, which they have not yet sent out review units for, but we'll see if they ever do that later on. So next up, we've got the launch of the Simmons Titan 70. This launched at just under $1,000. Holiday pricing was $700. And currently, here December 10th, it is selling for $859. So if this goes to prove anything, do not, I repeat, do not buy any Simmons drum set the day it comes out, because they always overprice it, and they pull back down the pricing just, half a year later. The upgrade over the Simmons Titan 50 is that you're getting 4 8-inch dual zone tom pads, you're getting a triple zone ride, and the module has more sounds built in. The kick drum has also been upgraded, so it's going to be better for double bass. I got a chance to play it a little bit, but not enough for me to make like a dedicated video on it, so I'm not going to share my thoughts on this kit at this time. All right, so next up, we've got something that really surprised me, and this is the Korg MPS-10. This is a 4-channel looper multi-track sequencer sample pad. It kind of looks like the Roland SPD-SX Pro and the Elisa Strike multipad had a baby, and this is what the result was. The thing that really jumps out at you about this sample pad is the fact that it's a rectangle instead of being a square like all the other competition. The screen's going to be right there in the middle between some of the zones. I'm glad there's more competition in this space. Sometimes sample pads get a little bit stagnant because there's not a ton of companies making this sort of thing, especially because Yamaha hasn't updated their sample pad in years at this point, so I'm glad that Korg is here. Okay, so that's your wrap-up of all the electronic drums that came out in 2023. Hope you guys enjoyed. If I missed anything, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.